Good morning, Pantsers. It's Tuesday. So in the Slack channel, Nella asked me to talk about our garden, which I appreciate because I always appreciate suggestions for things I should talk to you guys about. And I was gonna record it like a normal video, like a same person, where like I just took the camera out and just talked to you while I showed you stuff around the garden. But I kept having battery problems. The battery in the camera kept going out. So finally I give up trying to actually make a cohesive video, and I just took some short clips of footage. So I'm just gonna intersperse those throughout this video. And I know that's not ideal, but it's what we got. So this is our garden from from the doorway. As you can see, it is kind of a disaster area. We've been doing a bunch of yard work over the season, I guess. And so what happens is we'll start to do something in one part of the yard and have to move everything out of the way. So then it gets piled in a different part of the yard, and then we have to move stuff out of the way to do something else. So we have all these piles of stuff all over the yard, and some of it's just weird garden-y stuff, like odds and ends, pots and hoses and stuff like that. And some of it's just weird odds and ends, and some of it is stuff like piles of brush that we've cut out that we haven't moved out of the yard yet. But we've done a huge amount of yard work. It just doesn't look pretty yet. So a significant portion of the problem is that we had all these plans, right? We had all this stuff that we were going to do in the garden this year, and then what happened is literally as all of our stuff arrived, all of the plants that we ordered showed up, my mom went into the hospital for emergency hernia surgery. So that kind of messed everything up, because then, mom was down for weeks, and so she couldn't do anything, and then I was sort of focused on trying to, do the stuff that she normally does, plus the stuff that I normally do, and, trying to make sure that she was taken care of, because she couldn't bend over, she couldn't lift anything more than 10 pounds. I mean, and it was like this for weeks. So, and then just as she was getting to where she was, starting to recover, that's when Lennon got sick. And so I was very much focused on taking care of him and not on doing gardening. And so, so what happened is we lost months of work in the garden. And so, none of our plans got executed. So everything's in pots, which is kind of, we had intended to do some container gardening, but we didn't intend for everything to stay in pots. But that's what happened. We decided to go for edible stuff this year, not really flowers or anything like that. We're trying to build up as much of an edible garden as we can. And we deliberately chose things that were meant for container gardening or for gardening in a small space. So a lot of the stuff that we have chosen is very compact plants. There's one tomato. It's called a red robin tomato, and it only gets 8 inches high, tiny little tomato plant. And the eggplants that we've chosen we have 3 different varieties of eggplants, and they're all, container garden eggplants. They're very small, compact plants. Same with the cucumbers. Same with most of the vegetables that we got. We also got some herbs and stuff. We tried to get mostly compact ones of those too. I have a marjoram and a basil and a sage and I don't know, some other stuff. We also have a couple little cherries, but they're tree cherries that essentially grow in a tiny bush, sort of like a very small tree. Those don't actually put on fruit for the first couple of years, so we aren't going to know how well they've turned out until at least next year. But so far they seem really healthy, and they need to be in bigger pots. Everything basically needs to be repotted. This is part of the problem. But everything seems to be growing pretty well, so we can hope that it'll hold on until we get everything fixed. We also have some nasturtiums. And some calendula that I got on clearance, which I was pretty excited about. As you can see, it's kind of beat up looking. I think that's why it was on clearance. I think it got freight damaged or something, but they're recovering pretty well. I just got them recently. And some chamomile. I harvest those every day, so these are, the footage that you're seeing of those is before I harvested it. You're supposed to harvest like early in the morning. I never do because I don't get up early in the morning. I figure best to harvest whenever you can harvest rather than not harvesting at all. We also have a little strawberry patch. We have a big bed where we just scattered a package of bush bean seeds. They're called dragon tongue beans, and they're purple and white. Sadly, they lose their color when they're cooked, but they're neat to look at. They're doing very well. So this is how things look at the moment. I kind of wish that I had made a video earlier in the year so you could see the, the evolution. But this is what we got. It's not what we had planned, but it's what we have, and we're working with it. As usual, this is getting put together much later in the day than it probably should have, so I'm going to edit it all together. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I hope you guys are doing well. I love you, and I will see you next week.